All right. What's up, guys? I'm Tom. That's Nick. That's John. This is the Post Fight Podcast. Back in your lives on a Wednesday morning here in North America, Wednesday evening over there in Asia. It's a crappy day where I am here in Ottawa. We're having an ice storm. If you don't live in Canada, you might not know what that is, but it's basically just freezing rain, coating everything in ice. It's awful. I plan to stay inside all day, but it's a great day for me personally to be inside talking about one championship with you, wonderful people. Nick, John, how's life over there? John, we'll start with you. How's everything, man?
Oh man, I'm all about the ice. You know what I mean? All about it. But yeah, over here we're just having rain. We haven't had rain in like 15 years, so we're happy about it.
Okay, that's good, man. That's good. How about you, Nick? What's going on over there?
We've not got any ice here. It's just some grey skies and drizzle, same as last weekend. This weather won't end. I'm ready for some sunshine or just some proper rain. None of this drizzle. I hate drizzle. You know what I
Had
mean?
enough of the drizzle, man. I'm with you, man.
Yeah.
I'm ready for some sunshine, some warm weather. Of course, the people watching didn't come here for weather forecasts. We're not meteorologists. We're here to talk about fighting, specifically one championship, and some big news as it pertains to one championship and SCMP. We recently unveiled our first iteration of our one championship rankings, starting with men and women's pound for pound in MMA. We literally just published these, within the last 12 hours, I think, right, Nick? So this is fairly fresh. I'm not sure if everyone's had a chance to look at it. It's on the site now if you'd like to take a look. But sort of the initial purpose of this podcast today will be going through our pound for pound rankings. Everyone in the comments, please let us know what you think of the rankings. Let us know if we're wrong. Anonymous just raised a very good point in the comments too. We all forgot our bathrobes, guys. We made a pact with each other to wear bathrobes.
Yeah.
That's
Man,
right.
this is just.
Should we go get them? Should we go put them on?
I think mine's in the wash, man. I'll have to rock the
Do
towel.
with that. It's quite hot here, actually.
Yeah.
I don't want to turn on
well-
my aircon because it's going to be really loud. So I'm just going to sweat the whole night.
Hong Kong problem.
Maybe it's getting to that sweat season, April.
Yeah.
The next 7 months
Well,
is going to be very sweaty.
Speaking of hot, let's talk about our hot new rankings. Nick, you wanna bring up those the men's ranking first? Maybe we can jump in with that.
Yeah, sure. So I've
seeing...
published those, yes, but I've also published the women's rankings. I was just going to let everyone know about an hour ago. So don't all rush away and stop watching the show, but I will bring them up on screen for you. Here you go. It's all easy. We'll start with the men, shall we, Tom?
Let's do it. Yeah. I'm seeing some comments already about our pound for pound rankings. If you could bring those up, Nick, if that's something.
Yeah, I just realized I have the wrong one open, so give me 1 sec.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no worries. But yeah, we've been kind of talking about this, doing rankings for one championship actually since one night at the Kingsford. Was that what it was called? The Kingsford, the hotel bar in Manila. Nick and I were having some delicious San Miguel lights and decided that it would be the right move for us to introduce some rankings. 3 months later, we finally done it. 3 months and many, many, many beers later, we've done it. So happy to share these with you guys. We'll start with number one. We've got, as the post there on screen suggests, we've got Demetrius Johnson at number one. For me, this was a no-brainer. Just, this is not based strictly on what he's accomplished in one championship. Obviously, he's a 11 or 12-time UFC champion, is now a champion in one, Grand Prix winner, has beaten a lot of good contenders in one. To me, this was obvious, but I'm seeing already in the comments people suggesting that Christian Lee should have been number one. And I did say in my blurb about Christian that if it weren't for DJ, he would be the obvious number one for me. But for me, it was obvious to put DJ at number one. Nick, I think you agree. John, what do you think? Is Demetrius Johnson the best pound for pound MMA fighter in one championship right now?
No. And
okay,
you guys are doing rankings for one championship, right? So I'm just going to go off of what these guys accomplished in one championship, and I think when you look at that, Christian Lee is without a doubt the number one pound for pound fighter in one championship. The guy has won 2 titles. He's won a Grand Prix. I understand that, he snuck in there in the finals, but he beat the favorite, the guy that was supposed to win, the guy that was, pretty much a shoo-in to win the Grand Prix, and he went in there and demolished him. and then defended the title. You know what I mean? He did have that controversial decision loss to Okreun, but he went back and got the rematch and retain left no doubts that he was the better fighter. And I think Christian Lee should be number one without a doubt.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said, man.
I have my rankings. They're right here. They're not fancy like yours, but they're on a piece of paper. They're not fancy,
counts,
but I'm gonna dig into your guys' rankings. I'm the third wheel, and I'm gonna dig into the rankings. And I feel Christian Lee, without a doubt, is number one. I don't care.
Well,
I don't care about what Demetrius Johnson has done.
Let me jump in then and kind of acknowledge what a few of the comments are saying here. Yes, pound for pound rankings are totally subjective. Yes, ultimately they are completely meaningless. But the whole point is that this is supposed to be a fun debate, right? It shouldn't be an unenjoyable debate. Let's keep it civil. Nobody's right. Nobody's wrong. But yeah, that's true. This is totally subjective. And anybody that disagrees with this rankings is well within their rights to do so. Nick, do you think, I mean, you agreed that Demetrius Johnson's number one. Why is he number one in your opinion?
I did, yes. And I think it is right. When we talk about DJ as number one, we're obviously including all of his previous accolades. Whereas with other fighters, we sometimes tend to just go on what we see other than one. So it is a little bit skewed, yes. But when it comes to DJ, you can't ignore everything he did over in that other promotion, over in North America, as they say. They don't like to say UFC. No, I'm just kidding. UFC, DJ was the man. So, look, you can't ignore what he did there. It is why he is Mighty Mouse. It's why he's called the GOAT by so many people. And look, Christian Lee, I totally agree with you, John. But we only seen Christian Lee in one championship. You know what I mean? So, I have to just give DJ the edge there. But I could see Christian overtaking Demetrius if he comes back, and we don't know if he's going to come back. That's the thing, and I hope we do. I hope we do see him again because he is that damn good. 2 belts there, 24 years old. He's only just getting started, which is the scary thing. DJ, definitely, if he's not already out of his peak, I think he will be, a few more years. So let's see if he can beat Adriano Moraes. If he does that, I think he fully deserves the number one pound for pound spot because Adriano is extremely good and has a brilliant resume himself. But we'll get to the rest of our list. Come on, Tom.
Yeah. And to be clear, when I say I'm considering what DJ's done outside one championship, that applies to everybody on this list. But the fact is that guys like Christian, he has fought his entire career in one, right? And guys like Malakin, for example, who we'll talk about shortly, has only had 2 fights in one. And what he did before that was, impressive, but it was, in Russia, a lot of times fighting guys with, negative records and so on and so forth. So we're including the entire body of work for all of these fighters. And having said that, Demetrius Johnson, I think, is a clear pick for number one. But let's move on. We've covered number one and number two. Number three is, drumroll please, the monkey god, Jared Brooks, the new strawweight champion in one championship, won the title with a defeat of Joshua Pascio last year in Manila. A really great fight, competitive, but quite decisive for Brooks. JHK, I'm going to pitch it to you. Do you think Jared Brooks belongs at number 3 on this list? If not, where does he belong?
No, he does not belong at number 3.
What a shock, man.
And on my list, he's at number 8.
Whoa.
Number 8. And I love Jared Brooks. Jared Brooks is a phenomenal fighter. And I love to speak with him, interview him. He's a great guy. You know what I mean? And he knows the game really well inside and out. But I don't think he's number 3 on my list. On my list, number 3 is Malakin. I feel like Malakin's pound for pound, he's the 3rd best in the promotion with just what he's done. He's just demolished everybody. It's like there's no competition for him in any weight class. Think about it. Like Demetrius Johnson has lost, you know what I mean, in this promotion. Christian Lee has lost in this promotion, and Malakin hasn't been with the promotion for very long. He hasn't even been fighting for very long, but from every performance we've seen against the competition that he has faced, he's just completely demolished everybody. And I feel like him holding 2 belts as well, that has something to do with his ranking being 3rd to me behind Demetrius Johnson and Christian Lee.
Mm-hmm. Good argument, man. I can't argue with any of that. I will say, though, this was a very hard list to make, and that's one thing I didn't really anticipate when Nick and I first started talking about it. I figured the men's pound for pound would be pretty clear. I think maybe the top 3, top 4, most people would agree Christian and DJ are kind of in there in some order. But once you get out of the like 3, 4, 5 into that range, it's really difficult to decide where everyone belongs. Just, I mean, again, it's totally subjective, right? Nick, give us your thoughts on Jared, though, before we move on to number 4.
Well, I think Jared came in like a tornado through that strawweight division. We've been talking about making these rankings. Oh, I have, at least for about 2 or 3 years, with you or like some of the people at SCMP. I can't remember when we first started talking about it, but if I look back at the list, I still have it on my phone from when I first wrote my thoughts. And it's so funny how much this list has changed, because before, we had guys like Bibiano Fernandez, Onglan Sang, Martin Nguyen. They've all gone. Maybe it's crazy to think Shinya Aoki wouldn't be anywhere near a top 10 list now. Back then, you would have included him. I think Jared, for me, is one of the new blood who's come in on the men's MMA side in one championship and has just completely raised the game. The level is so much higher now. I think that's what you're going to see with this men's MMA list. Is just a lot of it is new, hungry, young guys. Adriano's still there. I don't want to spoil the rest of the list, though. Sorry, but let me talk about Jared. Yeah, quickly. I think Jared, his record's incredible. As we describe here, he's only lost 2 fights, and one of them he knocked himself out accidentally, and the other was a contentious split decision loss. Or was it unanimous? Yeah, split. To Davison Figueiredo, the former UFC flyweight champion. So this guy's record is as good as anyone in his weight class, and we've seen him. You talk about Malakin demolishing everyone he's fought. Jared barely broke a sweat on his way to getting a title shot, and then I think Joshua Pacio's performance against Jared shows how good he is. But we'll get to that later, or maybe we won't. Who knows if Josh was in our list? But, well, if you've read it, you'll know. Anyway, Tom, I'm rambling. I hope I have explained myself to your satisfaction.
I'm very satisfied, and I like the way you're building anticipation. Who's going to be on the list? Nobody knows for sure. Let's keep going. I think we're on number 4 now. I think you probably saw it on screen.
Yeah, I gave a sneak peek there. Sorry.
Peek, yeah. That would be Adriano Moraes, the former flyweight champion, a man who has beaten Demetrius Johnson quite recently. When we're talking about pound for pound relevance, in my opinion, there's not much more you can do to earn a place on a pound for pound list than beating other pound for pound ranked fighters. To me, that is, how you make a real statement in the pound for pound debate. And of course, moving up and down between weight classes helps too. But Adriano Moraes has beat Demetrius Johnson, 3-time champion, if memory serves, has defended the belt, I think 4 times over the course of his reigns, has been in one a long, long time too. One of probably the most experienced fighters in one, just in terms of like the length of his time with this promotion. For me, there was no question that he would be somewhere in the top 5. It was a little bit difficult to decide where exactly. Number 4 is where we put him in the end. JHK, I'm going to pitch it back to you again. You've got your own list on that cool piece of paper over there. Where is Adriano Moraes on your list? And, what do you think of us putting him at number 4?
I was battling, with the number 4 position, because I was thinking Adriano, he's beaten pretty much almost every top tier flyweight and some bantamweights as well, and he's held the belt a few times. He's a first ballot Hall of Fame, if there was any Hall of Fame that was going to happen for one championship, right? He's been around forever, and he's still really, really good. He's still top tier, and like you said, he beat Demetrius Johnson, and it's hard to argue that you can't put him in the number 4 spot, right? I put him in the number 4 spot. I'm just crazy. I'm just like flabbergasted that you guys put Jared Brooks before Adriano Moraes. I don't understand how that happened, but I put Adriano Moraes at the number 4 spot. I think he deserves it, even though he's not holding a belt, but he's beaten Demetrius Johnson. He's beaten pretty much all the top 5, top 10, whatever flyweights in the world. And you got to give him credit for that. And he's still one of the best, and he still has a chance to take over the number 1 spot if he goes and defeats Demetrius Johnson in a few weeks.
Mm-hmm. Really well said, man. I'm glad we're sparking some healthy debate here. This was kind of the hope, obviously. And again, these rankings are subjective. We may be dead wrong, but I'm glad to see there's some healthy debate happening. John, I'm glad we've drawn some criticism from you already. Nick, you've been covering one for a long time. Adriano Moraes as well as anyone. You've seen what this guy's done in this promotion. What are your thoughts on his legacy and his sort of standing in the pound for pound conversation right now?
Yeah, I actually think we may have been a bit too harsh for him. Now John says that, having him
John's
below
got me
Jared.
rethinking it too. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, we had to back ourselves and made the decision. Now we had to live by it. So I'm going to have to argue why Adriano should be below Jared there, and that's tough to do actually, because like John said, he's done it all. But I think the one thing I'm going to say, he did lose the belt, and he's had a couple of losses, and they were slightly contentious. But Jared Brooks has not lost in one championship. You have to factor some of that into it. I know we're talking about records outside of the promotion, but Jared is one of the few undefeated champions in one. There's a bunch of them on this list, but I hope this isn't doing Adriano dirty, because arguably you could have him number 2. You could easily have him right below DJ, I think. So there's so much. There's not much, sorry, to divide these top 5, 6 at all. I think if you look at our list, and I'm sure it's all going to flip around. We will be updating it eventually. I guess we have to do it every month. I don't know. We'll think about that. But
I was thinking maybe after every prime card or something.
Yeah. But we'll figure it out anyway. But yeah, Adriano, I'm sorry, man. You could have been higher actually, but I don't know how to defend it. Maybe it's indefensible, Tom. Maybe I
don't think it is. I think, Nick, you hit
wrong.
the nail on the head. Adriano's been in one a long time. He's lost several times in one. They were close losses, but Jared hasn't lost yet, and he hasn't lost for a long time, even before coming to one either. He's got momentum. And again, it seems crazy that we have to say this, but this shouldn't be perceived as a slight towards any fighter. I mean, all of these fighters that appear on this list, we're saying are some of the best fighters in the world. It was really difficult to narrow it down and decide who belongs where. So please don't take this, Adriano, as a slight or disrespect or anything like that.
I think one final point I would just say is that I think the way Jared handled everyone on his way to the title, that's what did it for me. Because Adriano has not always blown everyone away, and he's lost decisions to guys he should have and could have beaten or finished, I think. That's the only criticism I would have.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we've covered it for Adriano. Clearly, some room for debate here. Maybe he should have been number 3, but he'll be fighting in a little over a month's time, and certainly if he wins that fight, it's going to change everything with respect to his position on this list. Let's move on to number 5, another Brazilian, if memory serves. Yes, Fabricio Andrade, the new bantamweight.
This should have been number 2.
But that's the thing, right? Is it really was difficult to decide where everyone belongs, right? Because there's arguments to be made for a lot of these guys to be in the top 3. And then Fabricio certainly, I think we all agree, has the kind of raw talent and the ability to reach the top 3 and maybe even the number 1 spot. But the thing that influenced me to put him a little bit lower was just that he is young. He is fairly new to MMA, despite everything he's accomplished already. He's only fought 9 times or something.
11 with 9 wins.
Well, still, he's still getting started. I think a lot of upside. There's no need to throw him into number 1 just yet, because I think he's just getting started, as I said. But clearly an incredible talent and one of the best MMA fighters on the one roster. Let's switch it up. Nick, I'm going to go to you first this time. I know you're a big fan of Fabricio. He's one of your boys. What are your thoughts on this guy, and why is he one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in one right now?
Well, this guy just flipped a switch. Something went off about a year and a half ago. I think around that time he fought Li Kai Wen. Man's just been on a tear. He was on a tear before that, but he's been like a man possessed coming out of COVID, just smashing guys, finishing fights in the first round, and then to go and do what he did to Lineker, not once but twice. The second time there was a risk that it could all go wrong. I was worried if the ring might favor Lineker a little bit, and Lineker looked very lively, but he just eventually, Fabricio did what he does, shut him down. I've never seen anyone do that to John Lineker other than Fabricio Andrade. And John and I, we stood with him, about 15, I can't remember when it was, last summer. I know they're doing the maths. July, June. When was it, John? April, May? We were in Bangtao. Yeah, we stood with Fabricio on the mats, and you saw that hunger in his eyes, didn't you? I know I did, just talking to him. Right then, I think he'd just come off a win over Jeremy Pakatu, and then it was next up was Quan Wonil. Yeah, and man just looked straight in my eyes like, I'm gonna be the champion. I'm the best bantamweight in the world. I'm not scared of John Lineker. And I was just like, wow, this guy's confidence is very high. Let's see if he can back it up. And he did more than back it up. He's been incredible. I do think there's an argument he could be your number one, not even your number two. But we might need to see him fight a few more people. Like you said, Tom, he's relatively young in MMA. He came in, I think, to the promotion with a 4-2 record or something like that. So he's had half of his fights, I think, nearly half his fights in his whole career in one. I'm sure there's going to be many more. He's so young. He's so talented. There's so much better he can get. That's the scary thing.
Yeah, the sky's the limit for him. I'm just going to quickly address this comment from Gene Tidwell. Pound for pound, I mean, it's the definition of this term is kind of up in the air anyway. You're saying, Gene, it's not a list of accomplishments. I would agree with that. It's about skill, regardless of weight class. But how else are we supposed to measure that without looking at accomplishments? You know, what these fighters are doing in the ring or the cage is how we measure that. Their accomplishment is how we measure their skill. So I just want to respond to that.
Exactly. Like, we're just gonna be fantasy. We're just be like, oh, this guy's skilled. Yeah. Like, oh yeah, he's so skilled at this. It's like, how do
we
you
have to base it on
skill?
something? Yeah,
you
exactly.
have to base it on performance, right? Like,
on their fights, exactly.
Well,
let's talk.
That doesn't make any sense. Come on, dude.
Let's talk about Fabricio's skill, his level of competition, his accomplishments. John, what do you think of his position on this list? Did we mess this one up too?
Yes, I don't understand how you guys put Jared Brooks ahead of Fabricio Andrade.
So it sounds like your problem is really. That's a good point.
I'm just confused by how you guys have Jared Brooks at number 3?
Number three, man. Yeah. I'm standing by it.
It's very confusing to me, man. Like when you look at the level of competition and how they ran through the competition, Fabricio has been more impressive and has looked more skilled than Jared Brooks. And I love Jared Brooks, but you got to look at it. These weight divisions, they're different, man. The level is different. And I like both guys, you know what I mean? And Fabricio, you know, if you guys put him at number one, I would have blew my head off with a gun, right? It's just like, what are you guys talking about? He hasn't, like, he's skilled, yes, but he's not like number one skilled yet. You know what I mean? He still has to prove it, you know, a few more times. You know what I mean? You got to show us a little bit more. But I like him. Like I was, you know, like juggling between like Andrade and De Ridder. You know what I mean? Like I was thinking like De Ridder, Andrade, because when you look at De Ridder and what he's done so far in the promotion, winning 2 titles, and then facing off against like the scariest dude in the whole promotion, and taking on that task and getting his, you know, lights put out in that fight and losing his title, but still up to that point, you could argue that his run was just as impressive, and he's pretty skilled. I don't know if he's skilled all around, you know what I mean, but he has shown that he can go in there and look really, really dominant. But yeah, Fabricio, what number are we on? We're number 5. I have De Ridder at number 5, and I have Fabricio at number 6. That's where I put it. But I could switch him though, you know what I mean? But I just gotta give the longevity, you know what I mean, of like what De Ridder has done. And yeah, and he's taken on all challengers. So he's defended the title a few times as well.
Okay, strong arguments, man. I think we're kind of all on the same page roughly about, you know, where Fabricio should be sort of roughly on the list. We all agree he's kind of somewhere around number 5, number 6, number 4 at this point. Let's move on to number 6. You mentioned Malakin a moment ago, JHK. This is our number 6 fighter. You think he should be higher, clearly. Let me quickly explain why I think 6 is kind of a fair position for him. Other than the win over De Ridder, which was extremely impressive and extremely valuable, he hasn't really beaten anybody that I find that impressive. No disrespect to Kirill Gershenko, but, you know, and Amir Ali Akbari, they fought too, right? I mean, these are good wins, but they're not wins that make you that earn you a place on a pound for pound list, in my opinion. De Ridder beating him certainly does. So I think Malakin's position on this list for me at the moment comes down to one fight, which is why he's not higher. John, clearly this one disappointed you. I'm going to pass it to you right away. How did we mess this up, man? What were we thinking?
Knockout. That's
heavyweight. Yeah, but that's exactly. He's a heavyweight. That's what he's supposed to do. Right,
but which means that you can get yourself knocked out as well. You know what I mean? Like, every time he's gone in there, he's just knocked everybody out. Like even the other guys that have major power, that are massive individuals, they could knock him out. You know what I mean? It's not like they can't. Every heavyweight has knockout power, but he's gone in there and stood there against guys that could knock his block off and knock their block off. And he's a wrestler. He's a wrestler that's going in there and knocking fools out. Like, to me, he's just smoked everybody. And I think he's just going to continue smoking everybody. Arjun Buller, he's got a problem on his hands. You know what I mean? Arjun Buller's skilled, but you guys don't even have him on the list. You guys don't even have the heavyweight champion.
He hasn't fought in like 6 years.
You guys have him on the list. Like, how do you don't have the heavyweight champion on the list?
How is Arjun Buller on your list?
No, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, he's knockout. You know what I mean? Like, he's just gonna continue doing it. I'm telling you guys. And he's fully skilled to fight anybody.
Yeah, well,
like
Frederick A coming in as the voice of reason.
Jiu-jitsu guy, Buchecha. You know what I mean? People think Buchecha is gonna be somebody. We'll see. You know what I mean? But Buchecha might taste that power, and he might not be going for any submissions because he's gonna be trying to survive. You know, the shadow realms. But I'm just saying.
Yeah,
I don't like. I think even if you don't put him at number 3, I don't know, man. At number 6 though, it's kind of too far down the list. That's the way I look at it.
That's fair, man. Again, like the fact that any of these fighters are on this list should speak to how highly we regard them, right? We're not trying to be disrespectful to any fighter here. Malikin, I think we all agree, is one of the best fighters in one of the best heavyweights in the world. An incredible talent. He can box, he can wrestle, he's got power, he's got cardio. This guy's awesome. Number 6 is not a slight. That was just kind of where we felt he should go relative to the other fighters here. Nick, talk to me about Malikin, another fighter I know you get along well with. He's a great friend of this podcast, this site. What are your thoughts on this guy?
Well, yeah, if it's top 10 pound for pound fun people to hang around in one championship fight week, Anatoly's number 1 all day long. This guy, he's hilarious. Everyone loves him. You know, no one's got a bad word to say about him apart from the guys he's knocked out, probably. No, for real, Anatoly Malikin could be higher, but I think, yeah, valid argument is level of opposition. And he can put that, you know, if he goes and knocks out Bular when they do it, I'm sure we're going to hoist him up a place or two. And I think it's harder to justify him being top 3 or anything like that. But like we say, these top ones are all a little bit interchangeable right now. And it's hard to really separate some of them. You know, maybe in another year or two, we're going to see these people separate from the pack. Like we've seen things become a bit clearer in UFC pound for pound, you know, with Volkanovski pulling away and Islam, and now Jones is back in the mix though. So look, this was just a first guess from all of us. So of course, some of it is not going to look right. And that's the whole point. Everyone's going to have a different list. I think we've been fair, Tom, though. I'm
standing by this, man. I really, you know, I understand the controversy surrounding putting Jared Brooks in number 3, but I don't think it's that outrageous. He's clearly top 10. I think most people would agree he's probably even like top 7 or 6. And at that point, a lot of these names are interchangeable, right? It is subjective. I'm standing by this. I think our list is pretty good. We'll move on to number 7, RDR, the middleweight champion, former light heavyweight champion. We all know what happened in his last fight. He was undefeated, then he ran into Anatoly Malikin. As I said, it looked like he was trying to take down a tree. He just couldn't get those takedowns. And then his stand-up was frankly exposed in that fight, I would say. Not knocking his striking, but it was clear that he was a few steps behind Malikin just in terms of speed and timing. His eyes, he just didn't seem to be on the same level. And to me, that, as much as I love RDR as a person and a fighter, and I love watching him fight, to me, that was a bit of an indictment of his standing on this list. I think he has a bit of work to do in the striking department. That's why he's at number 7 for me. But again, no question that this guy's an incredible fighter, one of the best fighters in one. Nick, we'll go to you first this time. RDR, why number 7 for him? Why does this make sense to you?
I think if we do this list a year ago, or even 6 months ago, RDR is in our top 3, maybe top 2,
even number 1. Yeah,
maybe even number 1. The way he was running through people, that was a bit of a reality check. December, and I think in hindsight, he probably should not have gone and fought Malakin or tried to call him out in heavyweight. I think middleweight is where he belongs, and I hope he just stays there now. I think the triple title thing would have been cool, but it was never going to happen if Malakin had the belt. So let's see him stay in middleweight. I think he can, he can probably climb back up towards the top. RDR, I do believe in him. I think he's going to show everyone what he's all about. Not in this grappling match, but when next time he defends that middleweight title, I think he'll be desperate to remind everyone how good he is, because I think a lot of people are forgetting just how insanely dominant he looked against. It just blew everyone away that he came up against, and some former champions, Onglan Sang, Vitaly Bigdash, and Cameron Avasov. Yes, he was welterweight champ coming up, but he made it look easy really against all three of them. So got to give him props. I don't think John's gonna have him too different. What did you say, John? 7 or
John? You
6?
said number 4 or something for this.
Oh.
5, didn't you? For RDR?
For the Ritter?
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Like 5, 6.
Yeah. So let me phrase the question this way. In your eyes, his loss to Malakin didn't really change his standing in terms of his pound for pound position. You still think, despite that, he's one of the best 4 or 5 fighters in one?
Yeah, I think so. I think he is, man.
How come?
Just the run that he's been on, man. He's just he's been pretty dominant, man, with his ground game. I mean, just because a guy uses one aspect of his skill set to win fights doesn't mean that he should be down the list or he's not an all-around fighter. Of course, his striking is not as good as let's say what is it, a Tankai or whatever. He's a guy considered a striker, right? But his ground game, man, he's going in there and strangling people, and he's making it look pretty easy. He's done it many different ways, and I like De Ritter. I think he should be like a top 5 fighter in the promotion. I put number 7. I put Tankai at number 7. I thought Tankai should hit that number 7 mark. Yeah. Jared Brooks is number 8 to me. 7 Tankai. Jared Brooks is number 8. You know what I mean?
Okay.
There's just that's the big one right there. Between you guys in mind is the Jared Brooks. There's a huge gap in that. But fair enough, other than that, yeah, I think Tankai, if you look at who he beat and how he beat them, number 7 is a good spot for him.
Yeah, well, I think we have Tankai at number 8, so let's roll on to that one. No question that he's an incredible fighter. The featherweight champion now after a decision defeat of Tan Lee in his last fight. Has some other nice wins in one. Of course, there was that knockout of Kim Jae-woong that got him the title shot. John, clearly you're quite high on this guy. Where do you think he stands, relative to other fighters on the pound for pound list here? I mean, why is this guy special?
Tankai?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Just if you look at him, he beat Tan Lee. Tan Lee, I think a lot of people forgot about him and how he came in and just was wrecking shop, right? Just demolished everybody. Do you remember when he just clobbered Gary Tonin? What I mean? Just neutralized Gary Tonin and just clobbered him and, just took him out pretty easily, right? And then his fight against Martin Nguyen, which Martin Nguyen was the guy, right? And he came in and knocked out Martin Nguyen. And before that, he was just knocking everybody out, right? So when you go in there after you've been on a run like you have and take out the champ, and the champ was on a complete roller coaster, it was just bulldozing everybody, I think you should be on the list. And I put him at number 7 because other guys on the list to me have just done it a little bit more, against I guess longer and just they look a little bit more skilled. But there's a lot of positions you could interchange, right, on this list. But yeah, I put him at number 7. But it's very close to what you guys have.
Yeah. And one point that can be made sort of against Tankai at this point, I think, is he's just not been very active. He hasn't fought since he won the title. Obviously, it helps to fight often when you're trying to become a pound for pound relevant fighter. Nick, Is that as a problem for you that Tankai hasn't been fighting often enough? Where has this guy been, do you think? And when do you think he's going to fight again?
Down in China when he showed that video and it got 1 million impressions on Douyin or whatever. I can't remember what the numbers were.
No,
Look,
he's in Thailand. He's at Tiger Muay Thai training, which is
yeah, I
crazy.
saw he started a camp. I remember tweeting about it, a month or two ago. So that didn't come to fruition. But I feel like they were going to do a Tan Lee rematch, and then it just not happened. So I don't know. I don't know where he is. Yeah. I think the Tan Lee thing makes most sense. Would you see another competitor really lined up? Martin's not ready, and he's probably outside
Gary,
the
maybe.
contention right now. Gary's
Yeah.
probably needs another win. I think Gary v. Martin would make sense. Then Shamil was going to fight Martin. Shamil needs another win. Fraimanov beat Martin, but Fraimanov probably needs another win. So I think you do the rematch, yeah, considering it was a decision and there's no one else really. And Danley's age, you've probably got to do it now or never with Danley. He's 37, is he?
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I just want to say there's some haters. Not really. No, there's some people in the comments who are pointing out some correct things. Yes, you can base pound for pound lists on skill as well. We're trying to weave some of that in, guys. But look, we are not Jack Slack. I know some of you are asking us.
We're not Jack Crack. We're not Crack Jack.
Hey, let me say this: Jack Slack's he's an old colleague of mine, a friend of mine. I love Jack Slack. We're not here to do the technique stuff. That's his wheelhouse. He's better at it than us. I mean, go watch that podcast if you want, deep insights into technique and the nuances of fighting. We're just not equipped to do that. We're here to talk about the fighters and so on. And again, back to the, not talking about accomplishments when we're talking about pound for pound. I just don't know how else we're supposed to measure people's skill and their guard passing and stuff. Gene Tidwell without.
What are we going to watch training footage of them? Is that what we're basing our?
I'm not trying to be critical. Gene, your opinion is valid. I want to just make sure you understand why we're talking.
Gene made another account so he could come on and comment on the podcast.
I appreciate your passion, Gene. I appreciate the passion and then the.
Alvin's not around to block you right now, so.
No, he is actually. I don't want Gene to be blocked. That's not. I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, Gene's cool, man. We're
Gene, Gene, you can complain, but if you complain and you're watching us the whole time, then you're just a fan.
That's it, man. And again, apologies, we can't offer the same kind of insights as Jack Slack. There's a reason he's the best analyst in the game. Yeah, that's not really what we're here to do, though. It says it right there in the name of this episode that we're here to talk about the pound for pound rankings, not Demetrius Johnson's jab. So let's move on to number 9. It's a great jab. John Lineker, I think, is our number 9 fighter. Of course, just lost the bantamweight title to Fabricio Andrade. Close-ish fight, like the first one. Lineker had his moments, but overall, I think we all saw it the same way. Fabricio was just the better, faster fighter in that one. Having said that, Lineker still a very good fighter, very accomplished, especially when compared to some of the other fighters who have spent their whole careers in one. He's had this whole UFC thing, beat a lot of good guys there, came to one, got some good wins here, and of course knocked out Bibiano Fernandez, which is a very, very important win as far as his position on this list. For me, this, there was no question he would be in the top 10, probably towards the back half. John, what do you think about John being on this list at number 9?
I disagree that John Lineker should be on this list. I felt like if you're going to pick somebody that is not a title holder, that has been around the promotion for a while, very arguably, Tan Lee has a better resume than John Lineker, right? Look at Tan Lee, what he did. Knockout. Look at his knock. He's had all knockouts, 5 straight knockouts, and he lost a decision, a 5-round war with Tankai, right? And he's beat Gary Tonin Martin to win, Takahashi, Boku, and Sadulov. Like, that's a pretty good resume to me, you know what I mean? And he done it in pretty much all of them in the first, like 3 of them in the first round. They're all knockouts. I think that Tan Lee's number 9 on my list. Well, it is number 9 on my list.
That's fair, man. Tan Lee, again, is a guy who easily could have been on this list, maybe even in the top, like he could have been 7, 8. It's so interchangeable, a lot of the positions on this list. So not a knock on Tan Lee at all. He's a great fighter. And certainly if he wins, one more fight, particularly if it's a rematch with Tankai, he'll be right back, in the top 10 maybe even the top 5. Nick, what are your thoughts on John Lineker? Presumably this guy still has a lot left to offer in one, I think, right? Still a pound for pound talent.
Maybe we do a top 15.
Okay, we could.
No. Alcy has a good point here. John Lineker weight issues maybe dilutes his pound for pound rankings situation. Yeah, he has missed weight a lot. He was stripped of the belt on the scale, and then all the shenanigans followed. John was the only one on this list where I was thinking maybe, yeah, if I was going to put someone else in there, John maybe would fall off. Again, another year or two ago, I would have had John comfortably in the top 5 or something like that. I just think, I don't know, it's tough because I still think he would murder everyone else in that division. I think he knocks out everyone else in the top 5. Just Fabricio has his number. He's better than him. So look, I think that justifies John's place. Maybe people don't respect him enough for what he's done in one championship. He destroyed pretty much everyone on his way up. He even won his debut with a broken hand, I think. But other than that, he's knocked out everyone. Body shot KO on Kevin Bellingham, former champ, who this was before Bellingham, really went on a slide. It was still when I think he just came off the Bibiano loss, or maybe it was the one against Kwan, I can't remember. But then you've got, he was meant to fight Stephen Lohman, but then Stephen got COVID or something like that. And then Troy Worthen stepped in. He just destroyed Troy Worthen. It's painful to watch, and then it was painful to watch what he did to Bibiano Fernandez, and no one had ever done anything like that to Bibiano. So I still think John deserves his spot, and he's a very nice chap. I like him, and I think he's not finished. We'll see more of him, don't worry. But yeah, he might have his position in danger if someone else makes a clear statement. John could be the one that falls off in our next update, Tom.
Yeah, talking about people that could make statements, certainly Ton Lee is one. We've talked about him. If he comes back and wins, I think Lineker may be the guy that gets cut from this list, assuming he doesn't do anything else in the meantime. Another guy who might climb up a spot, of course, is our number 10 fighter, Joshua Paccio, the former strawweight champion. Just recently lost his belt to Jared Brooks, but before that, was on a nice streak, has beaten pretty much everyone else in the division. Not everyone, but a lot of good guys in the division. And, has been in one for a long time, has had, pretty good consistency over the course of his time and won a few losses, but great record, well-rounded. He really kind of reaffirmed that against Jared. He was able to stop some takedowns. Obviously, his striking is great. I would say, other than Stephen Lohman, the best Team Lakai fighter of the last few years. Obviously, he's not at that gym anymore, but one of the best fighters to come out of that team over the last couple of years. John, I'll go to you first. I'm guessing Joshua Paccio wasn't on your list. This is just a guess. If not, why?
No, I put him at number 10. I feel like if you go back, he's been with the promotion since look what since 2017. And he's the last loss before the Jared Brooks fight was a split decision, which was kind of controversial. But before that, the dude just was a winner, man. And he's always been fighting for the title. And he's kept the title for a while. So you got to give credit where credit is due, man. He's beaten everybody that they put in front of him pretty much. And he was the champ. So, I put him at number 10. I think he deserves it more than Lineker. But if you put Lineker at number 10, I wouldn't be mad.
Right. Okay, well, we're taking our sweet time on this list. Nick, I'll pass it back to you if you have any thoughts on Paccio. I think we want to get to the women's list as well on this podcast. So let's talk about Paccio really quickly, then switch to that. What are your thoughts on the former strawweight champ, Nick?
Yep, just happy he's in there. I think people don't really give him enough credit. And that's because I'd say, how good I think Jared Brooks is. Joshua gave him the toughest fight he's had in one by far, and one of the toughest fights in his career. Joshua Paccio is very damn good, and I'm not just saying that. He really is. He is. If you don't watch one, you don't watch Team Lakai or anything like that, watch out for Joshua Paccio. I think leaving Team Lakai is going to do him a world of wonders if he went and maybe moved to Thailand, something like that. I think he could really, really become. I wouldn't say he's going to beat Jared Brooks again, but you know, he can hang around on this list for a little longer. I know that's the accomplishment these fighters are going to want now, Tom, is to stay
Of
in the
course, yeah. Forget
SCMP
belts, yeah,
list, to get
yeah.
money, belts. Yes, this is the real recognition. This is like the
This is it, man.
Oscars of one championship.
It's the
No, I don't have
Oscars, the
much else to
Super
say.
Bowl. Yeah, I mean,
WrestleMania rolled into
look
one.
at Joshua's record, 20-4. I just saw it on screen. Now that's a great record, man. I mean, obviously, you know, records are relative. It depends, you know, who you've been fighting, but he's been in one, like John said, since 2017. Has fought pretty much the best fighters available in his weight class for the duration. To have a record like 20-4 is pretty impressive. I think, no question, he's one of the best. Let's move on to the women. This, I think, in some ways was easier to assemble than the men's list. In other ways, more difficult. For me, the top 5 or 6 was pretty straightforward for the women, with a few, you know, little issues. The back half of this list was difficult. And
Yeah.
it's frankly because, as we often lament, there are not a ton of great female mixed martial artists in one right now. Most of them are in the atomweight division. I'm not saying there aren't great female fighters in one, but it's a little bit more thin than the men's side. And the, you know, the strawweight division in particular is barren at the moment, with the exception of our number one fighter, Zhang Jingnan, has been the champion at this weight class for a long time, has defended the belt twice against Angela Lee, a number of other good fighters, Yaka Miura, of course, Tiffany Teo, Michelle Nicolini. Great run she's had in one. I think there's some room for debate as to her being number one. Obviously, Angela has done some great things. Ham So-hee is a great fighter. But for me, this was pretty obvious. John, I'll go to you first. Did we get the number one fighter right this time?
Yeah, because the only reason is because she's beaten Angela Lee. That's the only reason. You know what I mean? Like, there's other than that, let's say she never fought Angela Lee, then Angela Lee would be number one on the list, right? But since she has fought Angela Lee and beat her twice, right? Twice? Twice? Yeah. So you got to put her at number one.
I would agree that, like, Angela probably has the better resume overall, has beaten better opposition, but they fought 3 times. They fought 3 times, and Zhang won twice. Once quite decisively, you know, both times I would say quite decisively. Nick, heap some praise on this woman. She's been amazing in one. What are your thoughts on her?
Yeah, no doubt. I think it's clear. It really is. Zhang Jingnan is number one. Look, you said it yourself here in the what do you call it? A blurb? I don't know. Description. Yeah, that one loss we've seen was with how many seconds left? Maybe 10 or something. It was so dramatic. And look, she's more than avenged that loss to Angela, and I think she didn't look right all week when she went down to atomweight. Clearly, strawweight is her thing, and she's just the best. There's no one that comes close to her in one. I think there's nothing else to say. Yeah, I think she's going to stay there unless Angela goes and comes back and they do a quadrilogy. But you know, I don't see Angela ever being able to beat Zhang Jingnan at strawweight, and that's why she's number one.
Yeah, fair enough. Good arguments. Let's move on to number 2.
I just think she's too strong. You know. Anyway, if we want to talk about technique,
yeah. Well,
the punches. You see the difference. Yeah, but you see the difference of those 2 fights, or the 3 fights, Charles. When Angela was at strawweight, when Zhang Jingnan came down to atomweight, Angela was just taking all the punches and she's getting her head snapped back, but it wasn't knocking her down or out. But when we saw in the trilogy fight, as soon as Zhang hit her, she was in trouble. The difference that in power Zhang carries at her natural weight class, which is not depleted, very clear. So this is why she's number one. Anyway, sorry, carry on. I'll scroll down.
Apologize. That's why you're here, Nick, to give us these sizzling hot takes.
Takes.
Angela Lee, number 2, as we've said. I feel like we don't need to add too much more in this situation. We've already kind of covered why she's number 2 behind Zhang. They've had the 3 fights. She lost 2. Pretty straightforward. Having said that, she does have a great resume, has beaten a lot of the great fighters in her division. Obviously, Stamp Fairtex is a big one recently. Anything else to add about Angela? Anything else to chime in here with, guys?
No.
All right, I'll take that as a no. I'm trying to be a little quicker on this one. I think we lingered a little too long on the men's list, and we do have other things that we could discuss. So let's move on to number 3. This is an interesting one. I think there are a lot of people that believe Ham So-hee is actually the best pound-for-pound female fighter in one, and I think there's a real argument for that. if we're talking about what they've accomplished before coming to one. She's been great in one, obviously, with the 3 wins, but they are 3 decisions, 2 of them against the same woman, Denise Zamboanga. You know, you have to sort of weigh that against everything she did before she came here. For me, number 3 makes sense. John, she's from Korea. You know her very well. Does number 3 make sense for her?
Well, if you give her the same treatment as Demetrius Johnson, like you guys did on the men's list, yeah, you could argue that she should be higher than number 3, right?
Exactly. But no belt.
Yeah, no belt. Yeah, there's no belt. You know, a lot of people could argue that Ham, since she's been in one championship, her performances have been somewhat lackluster. You know, I mean, I'm thinking a lot of people were expecting her to come in here and start to steamroll a lot of the competition, especially the girls at the top. But it just shows you maybe that the girls at the top are better than what you think. You know what I mean? Maybe the divisions are tougher. But you guys got to understand as well, she's fighting against women that are much bigger than her. You know, she's a real atomweight. Like she fought in the UFC at strawweight, but she was oversized. Basically, she's fighting those women at atomweight here, right, in one championship. So she could be struggling with the size difference. You know, maybe that's a possibility, and she might run into some trouble in these fights against Angela Lee and Stamp Fairtex if those ever happen. But putting her at number 3, I can't really argue too much about it. You know what I mean? Like, you got 2 girls at number 1 and number 2 that are champions that have been around for a long time, and they've had great performances, and they have fought each other and pretty much knocked off all the contenders that have come their way. So it's hard to say, you know what I mean? But you could actually put Stamp at number 3 if you really wanted to.
Right. Well, that sort of leads perfectly into our next fighter. The number 4 is Stamp Fairtex. I'll admit I kind of wavered on where to put Ham and Stamp on this list relative to each other. The question was who belongs at 3 and who belongs at 4. I ultimately thought that Ham should be number 3 because she has done a little bit more in terms of her entire career, her body of work. And John, the thing that you mentioned, the size difference, she's small for this weight class. And I think there's almost nothing that proves you're, pound for pound worth more than fighting bigger opponents. Cause that's kind of what the idea is, right? How do your skills stack up when weight and size are taken out of the equation? You can kind of give people a good sense of that by fighting somebody bigger than you. And Ham has been doing that for a lot of her career. Let's get on to number 4 though. Nick, you can give some shine to Stamp. We're all very high on this woman. Great fighter, a 2-sport champion, of course, and now one of the top contenders in the atomweight MMA division. First title shot didn't go her way, but she nearly beat Angela in that first round. People kind of forget that. Almost stopped her with a body shot. Yeah, tell us about Stamp, Nick. Why is she number 4?
Well, I don't even think Stamp is that great at MMA. That sort of speaks to how shallow this list is. I think Ham is clear of her completely, and I think that would be a really fun fight to do because Stamp would play Ham at her own game, and Ham has not been too interesting yet. But you look at the people she's fought in one, and they've not wanted to trade with her at all. Denise just tried to wrestle her. It was so boring. Itsuki, that was a terrible fight. I think Stamp, to her credit, and this is why she's high on our list, she just goes for it. All guns are blazing there. She has improved a hell of a lot. I'll say that. If you look at around about 2019, 2020, they were pushing 2 women. It was Ritu Fogat and Stamp Fairtex. And if you see who has progressed more and come on completely developed as an all-round fighter, it's Stamp. Ritu's not even close. And she showed that in the Grand Prix, and she's just getting better every fight we see her in MMA. I'm excited to see her against Elise Anderson and see if she's leveled up again. But yeah, Tom, it's not a very deep list. This is the problem. The problem. And I want to see Stamp against, I think when we saw her against Angela, she had a little bit of success, with a body shot, but I think eventually she was completely just... She couldn't answer Angela, and I don't think it'd be any different if they fought again. If she fought Zhong, I think there is going to be a sharp drop off from those top few ones. Sorry, I've rambled again.
We want to ramble.
Okay,
we want rambling from you. I'm just going to address a few things I've seen in the comments, guys. if it wasn't abundantly clear from the title, from the people that are speaking right now, this is a one championship pound for pound list. We know there are better female fighters out there, probably in other promotions. We're not talking about the UFC or Bellator or anything like that. These are just one championship fighters we're talking about. Another thing, yes, these are shallow divisions, as we've said. There's no reason to drag the fighters. Please try to keep it civil. There's just no point. And then anonymous, I think it was an anonymous person raised kind of a nice point here. Maybe these aren't the best female fighters in the world. John, sorry to block you with this comment, but a silver lining here is that if anyone's new to one championship, this is kind of an interesting way for them to get acquainted with some of the best fighters in one championship. These are the fighters you should be watching in MMA and one. I just wanted to clarify all of that. We know that there are probably some better female fighters outside of one at the moment, but this is a one championship pound for pound list. So please comment.
How dare you say that, Tom? Are you saying Stan Fairtex would not crush Zhang Weili? Come on.
I said maybe. I said some. Yeah, I tried to keep it very vague there. I wasn't making any definitive comments, but this is a one championship pound for pound list. Keep that in mind. Nick, what do you say we move on to number 5? I'm trying to remember who we put at number 5.
I say, we can. Let's go.
It's not a good sign that we can't remember. Tiffany Teo. Okay, great fighter. A woman who's been around one for quite a long time, particularly when compared to people like Stamp and Ham So-hee, who arrived more recently. She fought twice for the title, I think, at strawweight, and including the inaugural title fight against Zhang, which she lost both times, and that is now at atomweight. Won her debut, submitted Ritu Phogat, who I don't know what's going on with her right now, Ritu, but that's an issue for another time. Yeah, Tiffany though has proven that she's a great fighter. And she can perform in 2 weight classes, which for me is really valuable when we're talking about pound for pound rankings. John, I'll go to you first. Do you think Tiffany Teo belongs in a top 10 pound for pound list in one championship?
Yeah, because there's not many women that are like at the top of the game, in the divisions. But yeah, Tiffany, she's always like surprised everybody with her performances. I think she goes into a lot of fights as the underdog, and she ends up winning these fights. I remember when she went in against in that first title fight against Zhang Jinong, and she just got battered, man. I thought it was over for her. I thought she was done, like her career is finished. And then she came back and won fights against fighters that are maybe more skilled than her, and she just kind of just outwilled them, and actually stuck to like successful game plans as well. Number 5, I don't have no problem with this, her being on the list.
Yeah, Nick, we've really watched her kind of get her footing, I would say, over the last year or so. She was always clearly good. She was fighting for titles, but it seems like she's sort of gotten more comfortable maybe or something over the last year or so, and it's really showing, in this move to atomweight that she's made, beating Ritu Phogat in her debut in the division. Do you think, we'll see her fighting for a title at atomweight in the fairly near future?
I don't know, because she was 10 pounds overweight when they did the post-fight weigh-in test thing after she beat Ritu. So she clearly was very, she dehydrated herself, and that does not fall. I think there's like a 5% limit or something you can be over from your official weigh-in result. So after the fight, they weigh you again. If you're more than 5% of that score, you get a fine, and then you would get a whatever you want. Eventually, you're not allowed to be in that weight class again. So I don't know if Tiffany's even going to come back to atomweight, unless because that took her, getting with a nutritionist, to really get down to that weight. It's a shame, because I think if she can do it safely, she can. And she didn't seem to have any problems. She was very lucid when we spoke to her after that fight and before. So I think she could really give Angela Lee a run for her money. I do, in a title fight in that division. I really do. I think if she can make the weight, she's the perfect foil. I think she's never going to beat Zhang Jingnan. We've seen it twice now. There's nothing she can do, but I think she could be a really good. And she seems to have the confidence she could do it. And I think it'd be a nice grudge fight. Singapore Singapore v. I think Angela
kind of Singapore,
kind of Singapore, but really she's from I think Canada. She was born in, and she lives in America. parents are like, various like
Korean or
Singapore,
something.
Korea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I don't think she even wants to represent them anymore. She wanted to have the American flag, but it'd still have that rivalry, and the Lees get all the love when they fight in Singapore. So it would still be some sort of grudge match, and I'm sure Tiffany would maybe be the bad guy in that one. I don't know if they ever got around to it, but it would be a great fight. So I don't know. I'd like to see her. Yeah, she deserves a place on this list for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. I think number 6, we can move on to that. I would say that number 6, maybe not number 6 herself. I think we had Denise. I would say after this point is where this list kind of falls apart. And that's no fault of ours. It's just, as we've said, these are not deep divisions at the moment. I think Denise is actually a very good fighter, has championship potential, easily one of the best female fighters in one. I feel like she's proven that. Number 6, I think, is the only option just because she's better than everyone else behind her, in my opinion. She showed in her last fight when she fought Lin Hershin that she has pretty good striking too. We knew her as a bit of a grappler. She had proven that. And then she rebounded from the losses to Ham So-hee with this nice decision against a kickboxer, Lin Hershin. That really showed kind of some well-roundedness to her game that we didn't really know she had. So for me, 6 is fair and obvious. Nick, I'll go to you first. This makes sense, right? I mean, you can't put her any higher, really, but I wouldn't put her any lower.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. There's nothing else to say, really. You've nailed it there. The 2 losses to Ham have hurt her momentum a little bit, but she got back on track. And this is a good one coming up against Julie Mizababa in Bangkok in a couple of weeks. Be interesting to see what she does there. I think she needs a dominant win. She got a decision last time out, right? It'd be Denise, if she could start finishing girls again. She's not far away from a title shot, and she got some interesting fights ahead of her. She got Stamp Fairtex. You can play up that rivalry, former teammates and things like that, former friends. I think they're still friends. So, but you've got the Angela fight. If Angela does come back, at one point Denise was going to fight Angela, it looked like, and there was some bad blood brewing. Not that I stirred it up or anything, but yeah, I think you can't put her high, you can't put her lower right now.
I'm just going to jump in on this comment. I did say her striking looked improved. We knew her as a grappler before she fight Lin Hershin, who is a kickboxer, and she was fairly successful in the striking in that fight. I'm not saying she's a world-class 1 Super Series fighter. I am saying she could probably outstrike you, Rio Sozin, but I'm not saying she's world-class, but I thought she showed some nice growth in her game in that fight, which is great to see, man. She's still a young fighter, and I think has a lot of potential. John, unless you have anything to add about Denise Zamboanga, I think we can move on to number 7. We're going to get some hate for the last half of the last few names on this list, I think, but we just didn't really have a lot of options, guys. So please be gentle with us. We did our best here. Number 7, I can't even remember who it was. I think it was Mung Bo.
Drum roll.
I feel okay.
Mung Bo,
yeah, I feel okay with this actually. Has beaten people in 2 weight classes and 1 championship. Has a couple of nice wins. Fairly experienced as far as 1 fighters go, particularly on the women's side. Again, it's kind of hard to say where she belongs relative to people like Denise and the people that follow her. But I'm okay with her at number 7. I think this was pretty obvious. John, you know a lot about Mung Bo. She's been around a long time. Do you think this is fair putting her at number 7?
Yeah, I don't see nothing wrong with that. Her and Denise Zamboanga, they both have underachieved, as they were like rising up the ranks, so to say. A lot of people expected more out of them and better performances overall, just because of how they performed in their first couple of fights. Meng Bo seems like she's maybe found the spark again with her last fight. It was pretty violent, the elbows that finished that fight. She's always been super dangerous, right? She's always had that knockout power. Meng Bo has, that's something that she can always ride with her. But I don't know, man. It's hard to say. This year is going to tell, I think, a lot about where Denise and Meng Bo will be in that like title picture and even in their near future, because if they don't do it now, I don't know when they'll do it. You know what I mean? I know Denise is still pretty young. Meng Bo's not very old. She's not even that old either, but man,
she's only 26, I think.
Yeah, she's 26. So they need to like show their true self. But you know, it's hard to argue like if you put Meng Bo at 6 and you know Denise at number 7. But skill wise, Meng Bo is more skilled though, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's as I've said several times, you know, the back half of this list was difficult because there's not a ton of talent, but also a lot of these fighters are quite young, don't have a ton of experience, so there's just not a ton to base this on. Do you know what I mean? We just haven't seen that much from people like Denise yet. She's only 25, 26, has like 9 fights. Meng Bo has had more fights, but also young, hasn't been fighting on a big stage for that long. So a lot of these women, there's just not a ton of information to base this on. Guys, seeing an expected amount of hate in the comments. One thing I would offer as sort of a counter to the people that are unhappy with this list, we've reiterated several times that, you know, there's not a lot of talent between these two women's divisions in one. Who do you think belongs on this list instead of the people that we've included? If you don't think Denise belongs on the list, if you don't think Meng Bo belongs on the list,
it's the girls from Rio's gym. They belong on the list. Come on.
Yeah. Of course, and Rio, I hope you know Rio, that was just a lighthearted jab. Maybe you could outstrike Denise Zamboanga. If you could, more power to you. Yeah, get in touch with the one championship matchmaking team. You know all these fighters that can beat Denise, man.
And I got dogs in my backyard that could, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about how shallow the one women's divisions are in MMA. If you know women that can beat Denise, these women need to be under contract with one fighting for the title. So with all due respect, put your money where your mouth is. Let's move on to number 8. Who was it? I think, oh man, we're going to get some heat for this one if it's who I thought it was. Nick, you want to do some scrolling for us, man?
Sure. Yeah, Meng Bo. Look, and she's with Bangtao now, and they've done a good job with everyone in the comments favorite Zhang Weili. So maybe they can turn Meng Bo around as well. Come on.
One thing I will mention actually about Meng Bo and Denise. Denise, as you said, Nick, has a fight coming up against Julie Mesabarba. Meng Bo also has a fight against De Cardozo later. I think that's the next card. Both of those fights are on that Fight Night 9 card. So presumably, you know, depending on the outcomes of those fights, we should get some real movement on this list. You know, if those two women win or one loses, that'll change everything. But let's move on to number 8. I can't remember who it was. I'm sure it was a fighter that nobody's going to disagree with.
Let's see. Jihin
Radzuwa. Yeah, I can already hear the criticism, but the counter I offer again is who belongs in front of her. If it's not Jihin Radzuwa at number 8, who do you put in front of her? She beat Atsuki recently. She had the loss to Stamp, but you know she held her own against Stamp, who we've got at number 4. So I'm just not sure who we could possibly put ahead of Jihin. Nick, John, do either of you have anything you know you're really dying to say about Jihin Radzuwa and why she belongs at number 8?
I don't know. It's hard to, like you said, like she's only 24, man. These girls, they've been fighting for one championship for a while now, but they're still so young. You know what I mean? Let's say compared to like Hamzoi, right? Hamzoi's in her mid-30s, late 30s, I believe. So, you know, this is just like a rough list, you know, a rough list. And they've had a bunch of fights already. They don't have like so many losses, you know what I mean? They don't have like a Nate Diaz type of record, you know what I mean? Like they don't have like 19 wins and 15 losses or something like these. Like Jian is at 8-3. What's Meng Bo at? Meng Bo's at what? What's her
20-6 or something? Yeah.
20-6. Like Denise 11-2. You know what I mean? Tiffany Teo 11-2. It's not like they're just, you know, like lopsided records or nothing like that. You know what I mean? So you guys got to give them a chance to develop. This is just a rough list. It's like, who would you put on the list then? You know what I mean? Like these are the ones. And I have no problem her being at number 8. You know, because we haven't seen the best of Jihin Radzuwa either. I just saw her at Fairtex training with Stamp.
With Stamp, and Smilla,
yeah. So she's out there doing that. So, you know, they're all still trying to become better fighters. You know what I mean? So I don't have no argument with her at number 8.
Yeah, and you mentioned Fairtex. I saw that as well, that she was training there with Stamp, who, of course, she just fought. It's always interesting when former opponents train with each other, especially right after they fought. You know, sometimes it happens years later, but they just fought. That was interesting to me. So I'll just share with you guys. I have an interview with Jihin next week, so I'll have some cool Jihin content coming soon. Can ask her all about that. Nick, anything to add about Jihin? And if not, you want to scroll down for us and reveal the coveted number 9 spot.
Well, yeah, briefly, Jihin. Yeah, she's improved a lot in the last few years. I think when I first saw her, I was not sure what the level could be. She's definitely risen up. I think she deserves to be in the list. Yeah, like we said, it's not the deepest list, but I think she deserved a top 5 in atomweight. So we'll get her on here. I'm gonna scroll down. Here we go. Drum roll. It's
People are gonna be
everyone's
mad,
favorite. Man. Yeah, it's Suki Hirata. Whoa.
The reason that she is where she is, that she's in the top 10, is because, like several other fighters on this list, there's just nobody else that you can put ahead of her. You can't put Lin Hershin ahead of her because she just beat Lin Hershin. It's just, there's just not really any better option, in my opinion. We thought about Ayaka Miura, but she, of course, has had a few losses in one. She was knocked out in her last fight. Bit of an unusual fight, but to me, this was just the only option for rounding at this top 10. These last few spots, I figured Itsuki had to be in there. And she is, she gets a lot of hate. People, for some reason, don't like that she's popular outside of fighting. I don't know why that rubs people the wrong way sometimes, but she's got great grappling. She has a couple of nice wins. She's still very young, lots of upside. Yeah, I know there's going to be hate for this. I can't really defend it all that much. There's just nobody else to put at number 9. John, how big of a mistake was this? Should she be on this list? What's the alternative? Lay it on me.
I don't know what the alternative is, to be honest with you. Why isn't Ayaka Miura on the list?
Because she's basically all she's done in one is lose. She's great, don't get me wrong, but it's just you can't ignore the L's, man. She's
lost.
Yeah, she lost a couple of fights in one, and she lost her last fight by knockout. So it's just.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
right.
she's great. It's like that's one of these weird situations where it's like probably she's better than Itsuki Hirata, but we just don't really have anything to base that on right now because all we've seen her do over the last year or so is lose, right? So it's a tough situation.
Yeah, it's if you look at Hirata, man, she's had a couple decent wins, right? Mm-hmm. A couple. It's not like she's just been complete doggy doo-doo, right? It's just like I said, she just can't beat the top girls, and if she can't get the fight to the ground, then it's not going to be good, right? It's not going to be a good night for her. But her being at number 9, I have no arguments with that. You know what I mean? Like, I think this list will be better after about 12 more months of fights, right? We need some of these girls to play out, and then we got a bunch of new girls coming in as well that they need to fight. So
yeah. And to the people in the comments that are asking, why didn't we do this for Muay Thai and kickboxing? The plan is to do that as well. We just wanted to start with MMA. It's the most accessible sport that One Championship promotes. I would say, it has the biggest fan base, the most, the biggest names. I would say for the most part. So the men's and women's pound for pound list were an obvious choice in MMA. Nick, anything to add about Itsuki? How do we defend this? This crazy thing we've done, putting her in our top 10.
Well, you texted me the other day, didn't you? And you said, right, this is the final list. And I just said, what about Ayaka Miura? Yeah. And I think we were just saying Ayaka and Lin Hershin, were the other two. Who did we even have at number 10?
We have,
we'll get to that.
Dan,
so I think,
Carlos,
Ayaka and Lin Hershin fell off. And you could argue for them being on. And yeah, Itsuki it feels wrong for me seeing it just after the Ham fight and the Jihin fight and against Lin, it wasn't even that impressive and she was losing until she wasn't losing at the end there. And she missed weight. So I don't know, man. Yeah, I think we were just trying to fill this rest of this list, and
That's it,
it's a
man.
worrying thing, you know. And I think, if anything, I hope this list spurs one championship into signing some young, hungry athletes for the women's
Sign some
atomweight
straw weights.
and strawweight divisions. Yes,
Yeah, yeah. They need to. I mean, these are good fighters on this list, but there's
they
no
can lift
question that
each other up as well,
yeah,
right?
it could be a better list. There could be better fighters on this list. There's no reason one shouldn't sign more, and that's as you suggested, Nick. You know, if one can infuse these two weight classes with even 3 or 4 new really good fighters, that's going to make people like Itsuki and Jihin better because they're going to have to rise to that level.
Yeah, we
What's
already
that
saw
expression
how
about the
Stamp rose up to the level, right?
yeah, exactly.
She was just
Exactly. Well,
fighting complete nobodies at the beginning, but then she's
mhm.
fighting actually, talented people who are, her level. So it
Yeah.
is only going to help if you sign more people, guys. Come on.
Yeah, and Stamp, you mentioned her. She's fighting Elise Anderson at One Fight Night 10 on May 6th in Denver, Colorado. If she wins that fight, I don't know if it's going to push her up our list. I still don't know if that would be enough to push her past Ham So-hee. But if she loses, that's going to change everything. She's going to take a tumble down the list, certainly. Elise will debut somewhere on the list. So, as much as we're lamenting the quality of this list right now, it could change very quickly. Yeah, and significantly. Let's move on to number 10. I feel like I can explain this one. I feel like half the people that are watching probably don't even know who this woman is. Day Cardoso. She debuted last year. She knocked out Ayaka Miura. It was a bit of a weird fight. There was a shoulder injury or something before the knockout, but still a nice win. I think it was like her 6th knockout in a row. She's, just like a great striker from Brazil. I don't know what her grappling's like, what she can do, but she seemed to have a lot of power for the weight class. And she's fighting Mungbo later this month. Presumably the winner of that fight, I would have to imagine, will get the next title shot at
Forgot to
Shangjingnan.
scroll. Sorry.
That's all right, man.
This
yeah,
is
so
a crazy
this
picture.
one, it is the only picture
like
I could
someone
find
at
of
a
her
rave.
on. I know it's the only picture I could find of her, and it was on her Instagram. Like it's from One Championship, but yeah.
Nice.
I mean, this kind of speaks to the depth of this list, right? That we have someone who's had one fight and one championship.
Yeah, I think
at number 10.
James is it he makes a point, which he says, you say this list can be better, but one's been around for 10 years. Another 10 years won't make it better. Just admit the women's divisions are not good enough to even have a list. Yeah, some people are asking, why have we done a list? Well, we've done a list because I think we want to make things better, Tom. And that's genuine for me. One toyed with the idea of having a pound for pound list for their women and the men, but I think they withdrew the idea of the women because when you look at it, they even take away the strawweight rankings from their website, Strawweight MMA, because it's not enough. And you had Angela Lee at number 3, and she was 0-2 in the division. Made no sense. Now 0-3 in the division. So it's we're just trying to do it to. I think we can help bring about something here. Make a list. Let's show that we need to inject some new life into strawweight in particular. We need to develop some more talent in atomweight and strawweight. Let's get this. This could be, Tom. This could be the start of something huge. Come on, are you with me?
It's true. Look, I'm with you, man. Look what everyone's saying in the comments. We're all thinking and saying the same things here. That these two women's MMA divisions could use a little bit more talent, a little, more bodies. If we're all feeling that way and we're all kind of mentioning it, presumably One Championship will hear it, take notice, maybe sign some women. This could turn out to be a very good thing. And even if it's not a great list, this is still a list of the 10 best female fighters in one. It's nice to have all these fighters in one place. Do you know what I mean? Like we're not saying these fighters are going to, we're not saying they're going to go and beat, the best fighters in other promotions necessarily, but we made a list of the 10 best female fighters in One Championship, and this is it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
well, that's it. Like,
it's not that complicated.
People are
guys.
complaining about the list. It's like we're just giving you the list of the 10 best in the promotion. That's it. It's not like it doesn't matter if you think that they're the best fighters in the world, if they're the best fighters on your list or whatnot.
To each other. Yeah.
It's just we're just comparing it with the roster. You know what I mean? The roster that's there, we're making a list out of it. That's it. Like you guys saying that this list doesn't, it's a mess, or it's like there's no point. There is a point. We're showing you that these are the best fighters out of all the women in every division, and we made a list out of that. And we can make a list. There's no like argument to not make the list. Like you can, as long as there's enough fighters to make the list, we're gonna make the fighters. Oh, the rankings for like divisions, that's another story, right? That's a completely another story. But we're just talking about the best fighters amongst the women, the best fighters amongst the men in MMA. And you know what? While you guys were explaining all of this and watching and reading some of the comments, man, one championship bringing in like Muay Thai and kickboxing and grappling actually has hurt MMA and the growth of MMA within one championship, in my opinion. The reason why is they have to spread the wealth, right? They have to sign, fighters for all of these different martial arts that are, that they're competing in all these weight divisions, right? Imagine if they took all of that cash that they've spent and just focused it on MMA, then MMA would be, I think, a different animal, a different machine right now. Women's divisions, men's divisions, it would be a completely different animal. That's what I'm thinking. But that's not the reality, right? The reality is that this is what we have, and we're going to make a list out of what we have, right? We cannot just bring in people and make a list. We're not bringing in Invicta. We're not talking about Bellator. We're not talking about that. We're talking about one championship, right? So these are probably the same people that are complaining about, oh, if you take away Muay Thai, then it's like I don't have Muay Thai to watch. It's like, dude, let's be reasonable, right? About
be reasonable,
the list.
guys.
Yeah, be reasonable. But this is the list. That's it. And next week we'll talk about other stuff.
It's a bit like if we made a list of like the best items on the Burger King menu and everyone came and got mad because McDonald's is better. Like that's not what we're talking about. Do you know what I mean? We're talking about Burger King. So it's just, if you don't like Burger King, I don't know what to tell you. Go to McDonald's. And John, that's a good point about the Muay Thai and stuff. I love watching Muay Thai and kickboxing in one, and submission grappling is slowly growing on me. But there's no question that they have sort of, I think, overextended themselves a little bit. There's just so many divisions for them to fill up, right? That it's impossible. And this kind of actually leads me into one of the other things we wanted to discuss. We spent a lot of time on these rankings, so maybe we won't get to everything we talked about discussing. But John, you mentioned, if you guys are okay to move on from these rankings, John, you mentioned that Darren Till was talking about doing Muay Thai in one. And this is just a great example of what you just said. To me, that just doesn't make any sense because this guy's a welterweight, a middleweight, even a light heavyweight. There's nobody in that weight class in one championship. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's just because there's so many weight classes. They can't possibly build rosters in a lot of these weight classes. But where'd you hear that about Darren?
He just did an interview with somebody. I forgot who it was. But in that interview, he was talking about how one championship, they have Muay Thai and they have like a stranglehold in the Asian market, especially in Singapore. And that's an option for him. Of course, he's talking about doing boxing, but we know that he's a Muay Thai fighter. That's his bread and butter. That's where he comes from. And especially with the 4-ounce gloves, who wouldn't want to see Darren Till fight in 4-ounce gloves, Muay Thai, not worrying about takedowns, submissions? That's what we want to see out of a lot of MMA fighters, right? Mm-hmm. Guys that just come in and they can strike. Imagine like even a Stephen Wonderboy Thompson coming in with his karate style and fighting Super Series, right? Muay Thai with 4-ounce gloves. Like those are interesting fights, right? There's a lot of fighters like that out there, and Darren's still talking about that, but it's a fantasy because who is he gonna fight? Like, what's the biggest? There's a gap, right? There's there's
not even really anyone fighting in Muay Thai above the lightweight division in one.
That's what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, I think they've had a few heavyweight fights and stuff randomly, but there's not like a division there waiting above lightweight really.
But they
Nick,
could make it because they've made it.
Yeah.
They made it for a lot of people. It's like you want to come in and do it.
We talk about all these divisions one has. I think often what they do is rather than build a division for fighters, they sign fighters and then kind of build divisions around them, right? They'll sign a guy like Darren Till and then, suddenly we have a welterweight Muay Thai division. Do you know what I mean? It's not like they build a welterweight Muay Thai division and start signing people. It usually starts with the star for one championship and then they build around that, in my opinion, at least, or they have done that in a lot of cases. Yeah, if you guys are down to just unpack some of the news really quickly, Nick, any thoughts on Darren Till potentially coming to one?
I don't really need to see it, I like Darren Till, but yeah, are we going to stretch things even further? Are we going to have more divisions, more belts? Let's focus on what we've got already, which is enough, which is too much probably, and try and improve some of those divisions, like these women's atomweight and strawweight MMA. Come on, let's do that first before we start doing welterweight Muay Thai. As much as I love Darren Till, and he would bring some star power, I think let's just.
Yeah.
But one have changed their tack with everything, and I think now you're seeing them go. They're not signing big names, unless they're at their peak, or close to it, coming out with name value, like Francis Ngannou, like DJ was when he left, and Eddie still had a bit of that. I think they're not going to go for Darren Till after the run he's been on UFC. And yes, it's Muay Thai, not MMA, if that's true, but I just think I'd rather see one go and get 10 more guys like Ilya Freemanov and Shamil Gasanov and Halil Amir. Go
some
find
girls.
Get some girls, some unknowns. I think this is what they're doing, guys. Anatoly Malakin was another. Go into the regionals in Europe, in the far-flung places where no one's looking, and find these talents before they get big, before they're making loads of money. Bring them in, raise the competition. There's some people with some very good eyes, some talent scouts in one. You may laugh in the comments, but there are people scouting and finding some very, very good young fighters. So I think, no, it's a no from me on Darren Till in Muay Thai. As fun as it would be, let's just stick to what we've got already.
Yeah.
I don't think one's in that business anymore.
I can't disagree with any of that. It's a no from me too. I say before we start signing guys like this, who are probably, let's be real, if he came to one, would probably only fight for them once or twice. There's no title for him to go for. Let's keep that money, keep those resources, and spend them signing strawweights, atomweights, heavyweights, you name it. Nick, you mentioned Francis Ngannou a moment ago. We talked about kind of discussing this quickly on the podcast. He, I guess, has been in talks with a lot of different organizations. We know that he was talking to one in the PFL, also BKFC. And BKFC president David Feldman said that Francis was asking for, I think the word he used was unrealistic money. Not a surprise, right? Like, he left the UFC, which is the most lucrative promotion in the world, has more money than any other promotion, because they weren't paying him enough. It follows that other promotions are going to have a hard time paying him what he feels he's worth. Do you think, Nick, that Francis is a good fit for one? We know he was talking to them, and if so, can one afford Francis Ngannou? What do you think?
I just think, if Francis wanted money, and that's why he left the UFC, he's not going to get it anywhere else in MMA circle. He's going to have to go into boxing if he wants to get paid that kind of money he wants. He's not going to get it in one. He's not going to get it in PFL, Bellator, bare knuckle. He's really not. John, am I wrong? Mm-hmm. I think he might win the 1 million in PFL.
Someone might go bankrupt, maybe, trying to sign him. You know what I mean? And is he worth it? That's the question. Is he worth it? And every day that goes by that he doesn't sign a contract, and I believe what Dave Feldman said as well, is like every day that goes by, his value drops. His value is not growing. You know what I mean? He's not a Conor McGregor. Let's just keep it real. He's not a Brock Lesnar. He's not a Ronda Rousey. He's not at that level. He's not at that peak. He's not on that type of mountain. Yes, he's valuable, but him outpricing himself, that could be a situation, or that could be the situation right now. You know what I mean? And if he does that, and he enters like the boardroom or the office room or the negotiation table, and he's coming in and then demanding outrageous things from everybody and anybody, maybe no one will sign him. Maybe nobody will, and then he's got to have to go back to the UFC. And maybe that's what Dana White was thinking the whole time. You know what I mean? When he left, he was just like, yo, let him go. Because what? The type of money that he's asking us, no one else is going to pay him. And that's what he probably understands. And he's like, let him go and let him see what's out there in the free market. And and maybe he might get 1 or 2 fights. You know, I heard the boxing match with what's his name? Deontay Wilder. That could be something that's in the works. But you know, whenever someone says it's in the works, it's pretty much a one-off. You know what I mean? If it's actually something that's real, you know, it's not like a long-term deal type thing. And I could see Francis Ngannou going back to the UFC. To be honest,
I can see that for sure. I think I can see this is a good point from LC. Now that one is, you know, doing business in Qatar, there's a lot of money there. You know, presumably there are some, you know, benefactors, investors that may be interested in doing like a big one-off fight with Francis against Malikan or something in Qatar. I don't know. It's possible. I think there is money out there for a promotion, an MMA promotion to sign Francis Ngannou, but it's going to take some clever negotiating, I think, and a lot of investors. And I think any promotion is going to have a hard time paying him what he wants, though. It's going to be very complicated, and hopefully he can make it happen quickly. We can start wrapping it up here, I think, soon. We're running an hour and a half. One thing I did want to address, though, Nick, I know I told you, John, I don't know if you saw, they announced the Superbon, or Chatri announced the Superbon should be fighting again soon, fighting Tayfun Özkan from Turkey, I believe. That fight was supposed to happen late last year. It fell through. I can't remember why. Nick, you probably remember. But that's certainly a big fight for one championship. There's not a lot of one championship news going on these days, hence our creation of these rankings. Just looking for something to talk about. But this is a good fight. Nick, what do you think about the, you know, comeback for Superbon?
Yeah, I think that one was called off because Superbon had COVID for the first time or something. I think he got it twice. Or they just said he was sick. Didn't specify it being COVID. It was a bit weird, though, because, yeah, it was quite sudden. It was one of those mysterious ones where the fighter just suddenly not going to be there at weigh-ins. And then, you know, Rodtang had a couple, didn't he, where he just didn't come in and give a sample. Jonathan Haggerty, too. Shenanigans, you might say, but we'll take them at their word. Superbon was ill. I have no idea. I know he had COVID the second time, whenever it was moved. But anyway, yeah, I think this is a good fight for him. And I hope he's not rushing back too quickly. It wasn't that long ago, right? It was January. No. So, and it was a bad knockout. So depends when it is. Chatri didn't seem to give many details, did he? Like a date or anything? So
no, he just said that's the plan. I think he said maybe mentioned June.
I'd like to see Superbon take a bit more time, you know, and maybe come back down to earth slightly. He was maybe getting a little bit too carried away with being all the stardom. I don't know. Do you think his head got too big and that may have contributed to the loss?
It's possible, man. You know, it's and if that's the case, it's partly his fault, but I would say also partly the fault of one championship and even the fans. You know,
and us.
He was being treated like kind of a god almost, you know, a kickboxing god, which was not far off, to be honest. But you know, maybe it did get to his head, everything he was hearing from people like us, from the people that won, his opponents, excuse me. One thing that I did find interesting about Chatri's Superbon announcement there, though, is that, as I said, I think he mentioned June, and we're living in complete mystery right now as to what the plan is for after the May 5th card in Denver. They haven't announced any dates. We know, you know, they have plans to go back to the Philippines this year. We've heard about Seoul potentially. You know, Singapore probably is in the cards, certainly more Lumpini, but we don't really know what's happening after May 5th. So it was good. I mean, obviously they're working on these cards behind the scenes, but they haven't mentioned anything. It was nice for me to hear something about these cards. You know, we know there's some big fights in the work for these cards. Superbon will be a part of it. Nick, have you heard anything about what the next card is after May 5th, or John, any insights?
I have heard nothing, absolutely nothing. Yeah.
Very mysterious. Well, I'm going to open
There's going to be a merger. There's gonna be a merger.
with
AEW.
AEW. There's.
Yeah,
I'm telling you,
that'd be sick.
Nick is hoping for that. You know he is.
Oh, definitely.
That
man.
ship sailed. You know, when they left TNT or TBS.
It doesn't
whatever you
matter.
call it.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter
Now
about the
they're with
network.
Prime Video.
It doesn't
Who's
matter.
Who's on Prime Video?
Prime
Let's see.
Video. AEW is gonna go
NFL?
to Prime Video.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're gonna go to Prime Video and they're gonna merge, and then they will sign everybody. Everybody.
that's what needs to happen. Yeah, that's how you fill up your women's strawweight and atomweight divisions with pro wrestlers, male pro wrestlers. That's what we need.
There
I
was
was
one
gonna-
other thing of news, right?
Yeah,
there
go
a
ahead.
couple of fights changed, did they, on Fight Night 8, 9?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
weren't the most consequential fights off the top of my head.
Semapet
has stepped in for Ferrari Fairtex against who was he fighting? Do you remember? God, I just remember.
Felipe Lobo.
Lobo, yeah. He stepped in against Lobo, and then Black Panther is out. Dennis Purich has replaced him against Jacob Smith. So a flyweight Muay Thai fight and a bantamweight Muay Thai fight. Just one half of each of those matchups has changed. New opponents for the guys involved. So no huge changes. Hopefully, those are the last changes we see for that card. That seems unlikely, but hopefully if there are more changes, it'll be them adding another big fight, because as we said last time, man, that card is hurting for another big fight, and we're all sweating about what will happen if something happens to the main event. You know, Haggerty has a bit of a track record. You know, there's legitimate cause for concern here. But
we got done on April Fool's Day, you know, by
Did it?
Cerebral Vigilante posting that Haggerty was out and John Lineker was stepping in to
I missed
face
that.
Nongo in a mixed rules bout, and I fell hook, line, and sinker. John did.
Damn, I
Yes,
missed that.
I was fooled, and also I was all for it as well.
Yeah, I was all for it.
I'm all for that. I mean, if you don't like that fight, check your pulse, man.
You know?
Yeah,
It's
that'd be
the kind of
crazy.
thing
Yeah.
that could
I
happen in
wanted
the
it.
too.
I
Yeah.
wanted that fight. I was just like, yes, that sounds phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
That matchup sounds great. But
It's crazy, man. Yeah.
you gonna be in Bangkok for that?
I think
Could
so.
be.
Yeah, it looks like the Denver dream is over. SCMP's
Oh,
not
really?
gonna pay for me. I just had my travel request rejected.
Damn.
It's-
Well, I'm gonna buy my ticket to go there this week. I think probably tomorrow.
yeah, I've
Yeah.
been trying to look at prices, but it looks steep. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's pricey, man. Yeah.
It's not over yet, but if I've got to pay my own way, it's like about
Yeah. it's,
3,000 pounds. You know.
You could sleep
Yeah,
in
it's
Demetrius
pricey.
Johnson's presidential suite.
Yeah,
There you go.
that's
I'm
what
sure
I
you'd
was
love
thinking
that.
of.
Yeah.
You could
All
vlog
right.
him.
Well, now that we've got that sad news out there that Nick may not make it to Denver, I will quickly open the floor to questions from anybody that's watching us. If you have any questions for us about One Championship,
Not
now
about
would
our
be the
list.
time. Not about the list.
And
We've
why
taken
they're
enough heat for the
pointless.
list for one day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dylan in the comments, good to see you. Yeah, man. Any questions,
It's an
guys? Now would be the
AEW
time.
crossover.
I figured, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm ready to see Rug back in action, whether it's, you know, MMA, pro wrestling, Krav Maga, whatever he decides to do next. I'll watch
Mixed
that guy. Man.
rules, baby.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not seeing a ton of questions. Mainly today, all the comments were, you know, scathing rebukes of our rankings, which is fair and expected. Here's a question from Zane. Why is one going to Denver when you know everyone will gas? I mean,
Yeah,
a lot of places are at altitude in the Philippines, even, you know, one does, I guess, doesn't do a lot of shows at altitude now that I think about it. But
no, they don't.
this is not an unusual problem for fighters, though. I mean, anyone that's fought in Mexico City or Denver, or, you know, there's a lot of places that are quite high up. So hopefully the fighters on this card are aware of the risks and aware of the kind of extra preparations they need to make, right?
I don't understand why they would pick Denver of all places.
I think they picked Denver because it's the biggest city in Colorado, and Colorado's the only state that would sanction their rule set like for the first time. I think once other commissions see if it goes well in Denver, I think other commissions will be happy to promote or allow one rule set. But I think they just picked the state that was most willing to play ball, and then pick the biggest city there with the biggest market, because it is kind of random, right? Denver is a great city from what I hear, but it is at altitude. It's in the middle of the states. You know, you look at places, you know, New York City, Los Angeles, Hawaii, they talked about briefly. You know, those make more sense to me. But
there's like Connecticut, you know, and you know, there's like random states that they could do it at. You know,
well, I think Denver's better than anywhere. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the altitude could be interesting.
It's always interesting.
Hopefully, everyone on the card is aware of the challenges that come along with fighting at altitude. I assume they do, and I assume that One Championship has advised them, you know, prepare for this.
There's always going to be somebody that says, "Oh, I didn't know." Like what?
Yeah.
I think that's maybe why Rodtang pulled out of this fight, and he's going to US. It's going to acclimatize, right?
Maybe, yeah. Rio asking if it would be better to drop women's MMA and MMA for one to just focus on Muay Thai and kickboxing. Interesting idea. It would be kind of cool to see them focus on fewer combat sports. But I think if they were just doing Muay Thai and kickboxing, they would lose a huge swath of their fan base. You know, the people that tune in for Angela Lee, Christian Lee, Demetrius Johnson, these are big stars for them. And also they sort of risk just becoming Glory, you know, and that's not a knock on Glory, but there's a reason that, you know, the average person you pass on the street doesn't know about Glory, right? And that's not to suggest they know about One Championship either, but with more sports, they have, you know, more potential to reach people, more fans. So I don't see them doing that, but it would kind of be cool if they were able to focus more on some of these sports. What do you guys think? John, you kind of said as much earlier, right? Like it would be great to see them kind of narrow in their focus.
You know, I think that it would have been just better to like have that they would have just focused on certain weight classes and then just left the other weight classes alone until they could actually bring in like a decent amount of fighters, you know, because it's like it's just too thin, right? Even in MMA, you know, like the men's welterweight and middleweight division is very thin, right? Heavyweight division has grown a lot since 2 years ago, but it's just I don't know. Even with like kickboxing as well, or even Muay Thai, it's just I don't know.
Yeah,
it's very confusing, like what they're trying to do right now.
Rio, I agree with the take. The 4-ounce Muay Thai and the kickboxing is great. As far as this comment that no one tunes in for the Lees, I'm going to have to respectfully disagree on that. I think people underestimate how popular the Lees are for One Championship. I can't speak to the viewership they get on Prime, but in terms of our metrics, Nick, as we've said before, people care about the Lees. You know,
they do.
They watched it. They watched the interviews we do with them. These are popular fighters. It really can't be understated.
Yeah, you know, people say things, and I get why you say it, but there's a whole world out there of people, and you don't know what they actually like. You know, so there's people in Malaysia, there's people in Singapore, there's people in countries out here who they love Angela Lee, they love Christian Lee, they love Rodtang. We can't presume we know just because, like, so no one knows of these people in America, and no one knows of them in the UK or wherever you are in the world. There's a lot of other places, guys, where people watch this stuff, and these have been some audiences who've been watching one for 10 years and longer than a lot of us have. So
it's a lot of people are just like American elitists, like just because it's not in America, like it's not an American promotion, like they think that it doesn't exist outside of America. And you guys have to understand, America's not number one in everything. And there's a lot of people that are massive fans of certain fighters that are not fans of those fighters in America. Like America, you might not have nobody that knows who they are. Very limited amount of people know who they are. But outside of America, their fan base is incredibly large. Like, just look at some of these guys, you know, from Russia that nobody really knows in North America, but they're massive in other parts of the world, right? They have like 2-3 million followers on Instagram. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's exactly. And some of these fighters are a lot more popular than I think some fans realize. I'm just going to throw up a few more questions and then we can call it a day. I think Winter TV saying he hopes one returns to the Philippines this year. You guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that is in the cards, right? That's part of the plan, I think. Nick, you would probably know.
Yeah, there is a plan, I think, to do another Philippines this year, later in maybe the fourth quarter. So I would like to see it. Yeah, it looks like there's no more Singapore shows this year, so it might just all be Lumpini for Prime, which like we talked about last time, I think is a bit of a worry. So I'm hoping we could have a couple, 2 or 3 bigger stadium shows or arena shows. Like you know what I mean, the with the big set and the fireworks and everything. Lumpini's cool, but it's nothing like being there with the big stage. It's a bit more production wise, puts on a better show, I think, for Prime Video, and we want that partnership to go well. If you want one championship to thrive, you want them to get good numbers on Prime Video. As simple as that. So yeah, let's see. Philippines would be cool again. Maybe this South Korea event, maybe Tokyo. I'd like to see all of that.
North Korea.
Yeah.
North Korea.
Yeah, lots of options certainly for one shows. It'd be great to see them do Manila again, Seoul, as you said, Nick. Question here from Frederick about The Voice, Michael Chiavello. We're all wondering. None of us know. I mean, at this point, I think it's kind of safe to assume that he is not with one anymore, done. As much as that sucks.
Yeah.
I've heard, whispers, about things he's posted on social media that sort of imply things soured a little bit with one. I don't know. I can't comment. I don't think either of you guys have any more like concrete information than I do on this, but I think we're all kind of deducing at this point that working relationship has ended. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, he's a free agent. Like he posted that, I believe, on social media. And what can you do, man? He's got to move on. And I'm pretty sure he's going to be hired.
Free agent.
He probably end up with a better opportunity. You know what I mean? He's a guy that has a lot of experience. He's well known. So I could see him doing a lot of different stuff. There's so many different types of like sports out there now that need commentators that he'd be perfect for like power slap league. Or something. Power slap league. Like
he's doing what's he doing? Pool or something in Australia?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Snooker. Yeah.
Volleyball goes in, he's like, good night, Irene.
Yeah. This is a good question to end it on here. Is one abandoning their Asian fan base? All of the recent shows are catering to America with the primetime slot on Prime Video. This is a fair question, I think. Especially given that it used to be the other way around. Fans in Asia could watch one championship in the evening, and now suddenly that's a lot more difficult. Of course, there's the Lumpini cards. You guys are much better equipped to answer this than I am, being that you live in Asia and I don't. Do you guys feel like one is sort of neglecting the Asian market? John, you go first, I guess.
Nah, they have fights every Friday night. What are you talking about? Like, there's no reason to say that they're abandoning the Asian market because number one, all their shows are pretty much in Asia, right? And number two, you have fights every Friday night. And then sometimes you have fights on Saturday morning. You know what's better than fights on at night? In the morning, because you just wake up and just turn on your TV and you have fights, you have some coffee, you enjoy some violence, and you go on with your day, right? I love it because I watch the UFC every Sunday morning. That's when it comes on every day, every week. And I love
morning fights.
Yeah. That's the best.
For sure, man.
But I think I see Kenneth's point that if you want to cater to fans going to an arena and watching live, they are catering more to America with the Prime Video shows, obviously. And Lumpini is every Friday to get people flying in to watch every week. So people in the Philippines, people in Singapore, people in Tokyo, if they want to watch one, people in, I wouldn't say Tokyo maybe, but yeah, one of the big markets we had before was KL, Manila, Singapore, Jakarta.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I would say Manila's the one which they really could do more in. You know, it sucks when those evening cards we saw, Tom. How much more interest was there in those, and so much more in Singapore and in Manila when we did that double header in November, December. It was night and day. The Prime Video maybe half full, right? The arena in Manila, it was weird. There's not many people at all. But then by the end of the day in Manila, it was sold out or it was full completely. There were people scalping tickets outside. They need to find a way to do some Asia evening cards. I think again, if it means going back to double headers, it means going back to double headers.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. It's hard to argue with that. And I think, as we've said on previous podcasts, you know, they're not putting their big names on these Lumpini shows. We're lucky to see 2 or 3 names we recognize on these Lumpini shows. They're only having 1 big card a month on Prime. I just feel like they don't have enough big cards to keep their roster active right now. I think they need to start doing something like double headers again. Just because, I mean, like we've talked about, John DiBella, Tang Kai, Zhang Jingnan, these are champions that we haven't seen in a while, and that's just talking about champions. Think of all the other fighters that are looking for fights that haven't been able to get them. And I think part of the problem is that they're just not doing enough big cards. But what do you guys say? We've done a lot of talking today. We're closing in on 2 hours.
Yeah, let's head out of here.
Can wrap it up here. Yeah, it's late over there. Everybody watching, I should have said this earlier, but if you haven't liked, subscribed, all that good stuff, please do so now so you can catch the next episode next week. Some good interviews coming your way. I've got some requests out, and as I said earlier, I've got Jihan Radzun confirmed for early next week. So there'll be lots of good One Championship content coming to this channel. John, where can we find you? What do you got coming up? Lay it on us, man.
You can find me on Twitter at JHKMMA, and go over to the All-Star YouTube channel, subscribe to that, and go watch all of my interviews with fighters from Bellator, UFC, PFL, One Championship. And every Thursday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, you can catch my UFC preview show, a pick show. And yeah, just catch me on those things. And of course, catch me here on the podcast.
And Nick, you were busy with some non-combat sports grinding. I believe it was rugby. I think that's come to pass now, though. What do you got going on, man?
I had Monday and Tuesday off, and I did not move from the sofa pretty much. We caught up on some shows. Better Call Saul, finally finished that one, and The Last of Us. I'm just plowing through it right now, taking a break to do this podcast with you lovely people. We're going to go back to it now. Work-wise, yeah, I'll be hopefully in Bangkok, but we'll be bringing you some more pound-for-pound MMA lists. Don't you worry, guys. I think Muay Thai might be next, kickboxing.
Yeah.
So get ready. Yeah. Hopefully some more news will happen. So next week we can talk about newsier stuff. Sorry, it was a bit one of those weeks where just nothing really happened in the world of One Championship. Tends to happen when you have 4 weeks between big shows. So, you know, hopefully next week we have some talking points. But it was just one of those weeks, guys. Sorry. So we did this list. I hope you were entertained. Hope we had some talking points. Don't take it too seriously. It's just a list. You know, that's all I'll say. But we appreciate you still fired up enough to criticize us about it. Seriously, we don't mind criticism. We don't mind any of that. Lay it on us.
Yeah. Just keep that energy when the kickboxing and Muay Thai lists come out, because yeah, I'm sure you'll have criticisms of that.
Just too. Don't tune out. Don't unfollow us. Don't please keep liking and subscribing. Stay engaged. Yeah. Thanks for watching.
Well, we've all got things to do. Nick's gonna go watch The Last of Us. That's The Last of Us here. We're gonna call it now. Thank you guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back probably next Wednesday, if not Wednesday and Thursday. But I think we're trying to stick to this time, so it should be next Wednesday. As Nick said, hopefully more news in the interim. But yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in, and have a great week. And we'll see you next.